Welcome back, NAIAFBALL fans, to the Week 2 edition of the NAIAFBALL Show. As always, I am Matt, joined with me below in the wonderful smiling picture who is still working on dial-up internet, it seems like, is my co-host and owner of NAIAFBALL, Cory. Cory, how are we doing today?
Man, it is rainy out here this evening, but gotta say, with the NAI football that we had this week, I don't care what it's doing outside. We had a fantastic week of football.
Yeah, absolutely true. We have a lot of super fun stuff to talk about today, some big time matchups. But before we get to that, we need to give a shout out to what some of you may be watching today's show on, which would be Urban Edge Network, proud partners of NAIF Ball. Have to admit, Cory, I mentioned it last week with how they handled the DW DSU game in my personal experience, but another week in the books for them with these showcase games and getting stuff done, getting the NAI football product out there. And I have to say, they continue to just do an absolutely wonderful job. We are super excited. Oh, geez, I can't talk today. We are super excited to be streaming not just on our YouTube, but also on the Urban Edge Network website, app, whatever you may be watching on. They do absolutely great stuff and are going to continue to do great work as the season continues, and we cannot thank them enough for that. So, something else I feel like we should thank the football gods for is the fact that we got to kick off this weekend with Grandview Benedictine, our media poll number 1 versus number 2. And Cory, this game absolutely did not disappoint. Grandview taking it 27-24. Jackson Waring and Jackson Dooley going after it. Two of the best quarterbacks in the entire country showing their stuff. What did you see in this one?
I mean, honestly, this is a game where, just like we saw last,
Oh,
get a clean game. This week, they did not. 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery, and that's what happens when you can't keep the ball, even if you're converting on almost 2/3 of your third and fourth down conversions. You can't overstate how killer turnovers can be. Because look at Waring. The Benedictine defense kept him in check on the ground. 9 attempts for 22 yards is just a hair over 2 yards to carry.
yeah, it's wild. Grandview did what they needed to do. It was their defense ultimately that stepped up for them in the end. And I feel like Grandview just establishing themselves with this win as the clear-cut top team in the country at this point. I mean, this is easily the best win anybody has on their schedule besides maybe Benedictine having beat Morningside the week before. But my goodness, what a statement win for them to get. Some of the repeat offenders that you've seen, especially in Grandview last year, made their national championship run. Isaiah Toki with almost 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. And that defense, man, it's going to be hard to see if anybody's going to be able to get through that defense. Benedictine was close, but no cigar. Grandview takes it 27-24. Now, another game that was...
Mark this, though.
Yes.
Mark this, though. You remember last year, Benedictine had absolutely no answer for Grandview at all.
Correct. Yep.
Look at the growth here between last year and this Benedictine team. I don't think this Grandview team has lost that much of a step. Grandview is your clear-cut number 1, but I am very sold on Benedictine as a clear-cut number 2.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get into it once we get to the poll, but for sure, Benedictine is like no questions asked a top 3 team right now, for sure. Especially with how they played, like you mentioned, with how it went the year prior. They were up to the task this time around. So that's super important to note. I'm really hopeful we get this matchup in the playoffs at some point this year because I would love to see this game run back. But yeah, definitely did not disappoint. Another game that was interesting to keep tabs on this weekend was our Division One Slayer, I guess you could say, in Weber. taking on 15th ranked Campbellsville. Campbellsville, I'll tell you what, looked absolutely fantastic, and that is even with the amount of turnovers that they had. It was their defense that came to play in this one. See that at the bottom there was 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups. That is one way to make the opposition's life a living hell, to be completely honest with you. Weber, notably on 3rd and 4th down, only going 2 for 19. That is under 11%. That is absolutely astronomical. Campbellsville's defense showing why this is one of the up-and-coming teams in the top 25 this year. Not to mention, like, just straight up, one of the top teams in a very competitive, top-heavy Mid-South. What do you see here, Corey?
When we talked to Jake Russell in this offseason, he was very concerned about his defensive line. He's either figured out who to put there or he's figured out how to get around it, at least for now, because you can't have 7 sacks and 12 tackles for loss unless some component of your front 7 is eating and leaving no crumbs.
Yeah, and they absolutely did. Not to mention a sleeper offensive player of the week nod with Trey Bass down there. 7 attempts, 7 rushes on the day for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns, 57 receiving yards on 2 catches, and another receiving touchdown to his name. Talk about some chunky yardage there. Definitely was a big contributor in helping Campbellsville get down the field, especially when Engel was having some issues on the turnover side of things. But still, even he went 22 for 32. 231 yards and 2 touchdowns will be more than enough to get it done against what we believe to be a pretty good Weber team. So, good win to get under their belts. Is there anything else you want to add here, Corey?
No, I think you got it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how far Campbellsville can go this year, and I am more than positive that Weber's going to be able to bounce back. You want to talk about quality losses, this is definitely one of them. So now we move over to Cumberland versus Reinhardt. An upset in a lot of people's eyes, but I'll tell you what, the way we've been talking about this Cumberland team in the preseason, the way their roster's built, this result really wasn't that much of a surprise for me. They looked really good. They ran the ball well. Zach Holtzclaw, as you can see there, didn't really have to do much through the air, going 8 for 17 for 99 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Jacob Cornejo being the one on the ground, getting it done with 115 rushing yards. And again, another dominant defensive performance, which is typically what Reinhardt is used to doing on these teams. So it's maybe a taste of their own medicine with it coming from the opposition. What did you see here?
I am super not used to seeing a Reinhardt quarterback sling the ball 42 times. That is that's wild. Mm-hmm. And you know, this is a team that a Reinhardt team that historically has been ground and pound and play defense. It looks like they're changing offensive identities. They might still need a couple weeks to work out some of the kinks. We did sleep a little bit on Cumberland after their loss to Tennessee Tech last week. That's an FCS squad. Cumberland, however, getting it done this week. That's not a bad Reinhardt team. They had a lot coming back. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a sneaky good win for a Cumberland team that is looking to build on one of the most solid seasons that they've had under head coach Tim Mathis.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, too, you mentioned it with Reinhardt, like this is not a bad team by any means. They will probably be in and out of the top 25 all year if they hold serve and do what they're supposed to get done. Obviously, this loss doesn't help their case, but it's early enough in the season. Like, this Reinhardt team's going to be around, and we're going to be talking about them. And I think this Cumberland win is going to age like fine wine as the season continues, if I had to take a guess. So, really exciting stuff there. Anything else before we move on?
Nope. Let's get to that last one. That one was an absolute fun one to get typed up.
Well, we technically have 2 more, Corey. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because lest we forget, mighty Peru State takes down 12th ranked Baker 31-17. The game closes with a 50-yard pick six to end the game with just under 2 minutes left in the contest. Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to say this is shocking because I feel like that's disservice to Peru State. But for all intents and purposes, no one saw this one coming, Cory.
Not at all. I mean, Peru State lost week 1 to an Oklahoma Panhandle State team that we just were not enthused about either. To me, Peru State's one of those teams that you never quite know what you're going to get from week to week. Sometimes you're going to get a really great performance like this. Sometimes you're going to get the loss to OPSU. I will say, though, it is really hard to win a game when your quarterback goes 9 for 28 with 4 picks. That's a toughie.
Absolutely. I feel like we talked about in the preseason with Baker Gulsgaard kind of being the make or break guy for them. They really needed him to take a step forward. And last week we saw like how good he could be. And also on the backswing, like this is also something that he has done in the past that we've seen from him. 4 turnovers is not going to get it done for you. Now, granted, Baker's still a very good football team. Don't take this as Baker's gone because they are not gone by any means. But now also we have to consider Oklahoma Panhandle State had a very solid win in a 1-point victory over Peru State. What do you kind of do with these 3 teams? Because now you play the transitive game of like, well, they beat them and they beat them, and you kind of have this weird thing going on. Oklahoma Panhandle State was a team we talked about in the preseason, not knowing where they were, but the floor of their roster seemed really high. So now with this result, my eyebrows raised a little bit. Do we need to be talking a bit more about Oklahoma Panhandle State? I'm not entirely sure. I think only time can tell there. What do you think, Cory?
I think we're going to have to see more. I mean, and that's such a cop-out answer, I know. But you're 2 weeks in.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen all of who a team really is yet, especially when you've gotten to disparate looks.
Yep.
At a team like a Peru State. We haven't seen a ton of consistency with play with them, and it's going to be hard to judge OPSU until they get a little bit deeper into their Sooner schedule. I mean, look, if OPSU starts whipping up on Texas College, Wayland, Baptist County, that middle section, Nelson, of the Sooner, then that's a huge step forward for the guys in the Sooner State.
Absolutely. Now, something that we can't disregard just 2 weeks into the season is the fact that Peru State's offense seems to very clearly run through C.J. Dixon, went 13 for 22, 169 yards of passing touchdown, and 53 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns on the ground to boot. On the other side of things, Adrian Seals being the main target for Gulsgaard. Gulsgaard only had 37 passing yards outside of Adrian Seals, with Seals going 6 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown, and a very impressive performance in his own right. But we mentioned it, going less than 30% on 3rd and 4th down won't get it done, especially when Peru State's defense is up to the task with 4 picks. That game-ending pick 6 that we talked about, 7 pass breakups and 2 tackles for loss. Now, for the last contest we're about to talk about, this one was some good old-fashioned frontier football, Cory. I don't know really how to put it. I mean, this game was an absolute blast. Montana Tech getting another win under their belts after a very impressive showing against Montana Western. Holding serve at Carroll, who, granted, did not crack our top 25, but is still a very tough place to play and includes some really impressive players on that team. I think this is a great win for Montana Tech to get under their belt, especially with how last week went. You don't want the highs to be too high. You don't want the lows to be too low. Montana Tech just staying the course, getting an 11-point victory out of it. What did you see here, Cory?
One of the things that we really need to keep an eye on over the next few weeks, Montana Tech played 3 different guys at quarterback. Jarrett Wilson just had the most yards out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've heard it said, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have 1. And even more so if you're trying to find out who's going to be your guy amongst 3.
Yeah.
They got out of it with Carroll. You beat Montana Western with that same trio, but once we start getting into October and November, when defense starts to be your calling card and your quarterback play becomes imperative to be good,
Yeah.
you've got to find the guy that you like to move forward with, because you can't be sitting here switching quarterbacks all willy-nilly in November in Dickinson, North Dakota.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that they'll have to get hammered out. But I'd also argue this early in the season, you're having this kind of success against very good teams when you're still figuring out your quarterback position. That's a pretty good recipe for the rest of your team, and showing how good the rest of your roster is to be able to get it done. But yeah, I do agree. It's definitely a situation they'll need to figure out, especially as we kind of transition here into the top 25 poll, because Montana Tech, among some other teams, kind of in some interesting spots here. So let's not waste any time, Cory. I think it's time to make some people upset, like we do every week. It's the fun part of the show. So as I switch over here,
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. You'll see here on the top 25, there's some teams making some big moves. Grandview getting all first place votes this week. I think nobody's really going to argue that. And Benedictine, even with the loss, not budging anywhere from that number 2 spot in our poll. Morningside, who they beat the week before, at number 3. We also have Kaiser at 4. Montana Tech sneaking into the top 5. I personally have them as 2 in the country after that win, but that's just me. And also, like I said, it's early enough to where that could change. My friends Falcons, that I am extremely bullish on, number 6 in that poll. St. Thomas goes to 7. Indiana Wesleyan at 8, tied with Northwestern for that 8th spot. Georgetown 10. Montana Western at 11. Lindsey Wilson moves up again to number 12. Southwestern up to 13 after kind of a scary one against the Blue Jays, honestly, Cory. But they get it done, and I think that Tabor team is a lot better than we give them credit for. Number 14 is Campbellsville after their win. Number 15, Evangel, finally getting some respect for the Valor.
Thanks, Skippy.
Number 16 is the Dordt Defenders. Don't ask who they played. Don't ask what the final score is. I will not answer that for you. You can go find out for yourself. Definitely wasn't Dakota Wesleyan. But anyways, after that, we have Marion at 17, tied with Ottawa, Arizona in that spot as well. Mid-American Nazarene moves up to 19. Dickinson State at 20. Concordia, Nebraska moves up to 21. They will also be playing the Tigers this coming weekend, so I will be all eyes on that one. Southeastern in Florida at 22. Southern Oregon bumps down to 23 after their loss to Division II Western Oregon. Baker's still in the top 25 at 24, moving down, but still making an appearance. And McPherson joins the fray at number 25. What do you see here, Cory?
Couple things here. Welcome, McPherson.
Yes, sir.
You have deserved this top 25 spot. I love that we're finally getting to the point where we're getting Evangel, in my mind, close to where they need to be.
Yep.
They have absolutely taken care of business in the first 2 weeks, and these guys have gone from 24 to 20 to 15 in 3 consecutive weeks, kind of showing, oh yeah, let's adjust these guys. I do want to point out Kaiser because my son friends are probably going to be fit to be tied. It's less about Kaiser than it is the fact that we've had games between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, and the spread between the scores in 1 and 3 has been 7 points.
Yeah.
I think it's that closeness there that we're really focused on more so than what Kaiser hasn't done. And it's gonna take something external, I think, for Kaiser to move up, unless they just start beating the living daylights out of everyone. If they rock up into their game against St. Thomas or Southeastern and beat them by 60, okay, we've got some, and I'm being blown it out of proportion here, but it's less about what Kaiser's done or hasn't done, and more about what you've seen from Grandview, Benedictine, and Morningside. One thing I will note here as well is Marion. We said we would kind of hold judgment a little bit. At least I would personally after that UND game, but after the game this week, where they still looked a little, at least that defense gave up a lot more points than I wanted to see there. I personally pulled them back a couple spots in my poll. There are other teams that are at this stage of the season more complete ball clubs than the Knights.
For sure. And I think, too, just with a lot of these early season polls, we get into that territory where it's like, we just don't know a lot about some of these other teams yet. Like, the frame of reference for playing a top 25 Division II team, that's a great matchup. But, like, same with Southern Oregon, too. Like, how does a Division II loss to an unranked Western Oregon team, how does that weigh? We don't really know yet. So it's kind of hard, especially for a lot of these teams on the back slate here. Like you mentioned, Marion was one. Concordia, I think, is another that is still up in the air just with who they've played so far. I'm curious to see Southeastern as well coming up. But yeah, it's really interesting kind of the spot we're in. I think we have a good idea of our top contenders so far, but things could change very quickly. And I think, Cory, me and you, while we're here, we should also note we both had Olivet Nazarene in our top 25 this week. I think they deserve at least a shout because they have looked fantastic in the first stretch of the season here, and be a bit reminiscent if we didn't give them at least a little bit of love, even though they're not on the top 25 here.
I mean, you get a win over a Taylor team that was in both of our top 25s to start the season.
Yep.
And then they went out and just had a field day on Saturday. Yeah, they absolutely, in my mind, will probably make it into the top 25. It's really hard right now in their division. It's kind of crowded.
Yeah.
Right now with Marion and St. Francis, and we'll see what St. Francis does. You'll notice that yes, they won, but they didn't get back into the top 25. That was a really close win, a little bit closer than I would have liked. But that's a division right now with a lot of parity and not a true leader. In the division.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, we always default to it being week 2. Still a lot of ball left to play, so, there's going to be a lot of shuffling of this top 25 in the coming weeks. But before we get to anything else and kind of look forward to the week ahead, let's take a moment and hear a word from our sponsors at AdCraft.
Want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business? That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
And that's exactly, Cory, what AdCraft does. They have been longtime supporters of NAIAFBALL, and we cannot thank them enough for everything that they do, whether it is web stores or getting products to customers and making sure that you get to focus on your part of the game, which is coaching football and making sure your players are ready to go. Makes your life that much easier, so make sure to check them out. They're NAIA born and bred, and we love them so dearly. And someone else that we love so dearly is Connor Darnell Designs. All these beautiful graphics you see on the stream today and this entire season are going to be straight from him. He makes awesome bag tags. He does really cool stuff. He's working with a couple conferences outright, I believe, this season with his graphics work. So make sure to give him a shout. He knows the ins and outs of being an SID and working in that realm, and he's just really good at what he does and is super efficient. We can't thank him enough for the contributions he makes to this show. Now, speaking of contributors, we're going to get into some player contributions that are extremely impressive from this past week with our NAIAFBALL Players of the Week. Starting on the offensive side of the ball, we'd be, a bit remiss if we didn't mention Darius Haskin. Now, granted, Rocky Mountain College did not get it done this past weekend, but an impressive effort through the air with 6 catches, 207 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and one of the most egregious video game stat lines I think I've ever seen in my life, Corey. This guy's a baller.
To put this in perspective, that is more than 1/3 of the field that he covered every time he caught the ball.
It's a lot of yardage.
You want to talk about an explosive play? Yeah, that'll do it right there.
Yeah, I have to agree, to be completely honest with you. Now, on the other side of the ball, another team who has been known in the past for really, really good stout defense. Fitting the bill for that program is going to be our defensive player of the week, Dalen Henson, with 10 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 pass breakups as an SID this weekend, whose team is traveling down to Seward, Nebraska to take on this team. This is a guy I don't want to see a lot of because, frankly, he was all over the field in their contest this past weekend.
It was Defensive Player of the Week was a tough win.
Yep.
This week. Had a guy with 3.5 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. And, I mean, when you're getting a sack and 2 forced fumbles, a forced fumble, both of which I'm pretty sure Concordia picked up. A sack, the drive continues. Forced fumble, drive's done at that point.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. A very impressive effort from Dalen there of Concordia. Like I said, they will be facing off against my Dakota Wesleyan Tigers this weekend. Should be exciting to see how he can show out and lead that defense. Like Cory said too, though, there were a lot of impressive defensive efforts across the league. There's somebody, I think, from Doane who had 19 tackles in a really impressive performance. You had guys who had multiple interceptions. You had guys who did all sorts of crazy stuff this week. So I highly encourage you all to go check out the box scores when you get the chance. There's some really good performances, and it was really hard to narrow it down this week. But these felt like our guys. Now, people who are also our guys, I'm still learning these transitions, Cory. I'm slowly getting better at them, if you can notice. Our guys at the Headset app, they are also a proud sponsor of the NAIAFBALL show. And what we do here, you don't want to spend a bunch of money on these super expensive headsets that are going to break, which some GA is not going to know how to set up, and you're going to be scrambling before game day to get all synced up and ready to go on the right radio channels. So why not just make it easier for yourself? Do everything through your phone, through private servers. The Headset app has you covered there. You literally just have your phone ready to go. You have your AirPods in. Anything you need to communicate and listen to who's talking to you, you're good to go. It saves you a lot of money. It's easy to set up. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. And I can tell you, too, not just from the coach's side, but also game day operations, other things around the office. This is just a really good app to have to be able to get things done and communicate in an efficient way. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to football, you want to make sure that you are all on the same page, and the Headset app can help you get there. Now, they are also the sponsor of today's play call of the week. We mentioned Peru State at the end of their game with a pick six to take it over Baker. You'll see in the play coming up here. It's a pretty basic zone drop, but being able to read the play on the screen, take advantage of the ball, and house it to seal what was an extremely impressive win for Peru State. That'll get it done. So why don't you just take a look real quick. I kept the PA guy in there. I just love that. You know, the whole sideline's going crazy. You can hear the fans in the stands. Just an exclamation point to end this game for Peru State on what was Baker's last drive to tie it up. Peru State would end up outscoring Baker because of that drive 21-7 at the end of the second half to seal it for them. And being able to read and react, Cory, it's a very crucial skill to playing defense well. See how the linebacker just dropped into zone coverage there, took advantage of some, I don't think bad blocking's the right term, but it seemed like the way the screen was timed, not exactly how they wanted that play to time out. And he was able to house that ball and seal it for Peru State. So.
And I will point out that Peru State is one of the teams that is using the headset app for their coaching staff. So, you know, I can't guarantee you that you're going to be able to get top 15 wins if you use the headset app, but it won't hurt.
Certainly won't hurt. We also can't guarantee you'll get interceptions, but we're also not going to not say it won't help you. So you can do the math on how many negatives that was. But anyways, speaking of things to be excited for the upcoming week, we have some pretty good matchups in the top 25 this coming week. A lot of questions going to be answered about a lot of teams that we've been looking forward to seeing this year. First one is going to be Southwestern versus Evangel. I am really stoked for this matchup of somebody who has Evangel in their top 10 right now. Gonna be a real test for them. Southwestern coming off of a close win against a good, decent Blue Jays team. Truthfully, winner of this game will be the top dog on their side of the conference there. Super excited to watch that one. And then after that, we got Benedictine versus Graceland, which is going to be a super fun matchup. We get to see this Graceland team we've been hyping up so much this offseason with Gerald Monroe against top-end competition. Really stoked about that one. And then we have a doubleheader in the nightcap with Campbellsville taking on U-Pike, a U-Pike team that has a loss or two under their belt, but is still a very good football team. And Campbellsville obviously coming off of that big win against Weber International. And then Southeastern with their first big test of the year against a Reinhardt team looking for redemption after their loss to Cumberland. What are you looking for in these matchups, Cory? I am sure Cory would have some awesome insight if you were speaking right now. Like we had mentioned at the beginning of the show, Cory's internet is a bit suspect at times, which is why I am hosting. It is no problem, so we're going to get this thing rolling as soon as he gets back. And as we are flopping over, we're actually going to flop over meetings here. Whoops. Very professional stream we have going on here. So don't worry about it. I know for me personally, I am really excited for all of these matchups. Like I said, Evangel is definitely a team that I am super excited to see this coming season and how their season pans out. I think Southwestern will be a fantastic test for them. Even with their close win against Tabor, I think Southwestern is a team a lot of people didn't have this far up early in the season, which is interesting to me because it always feels like they start the season in this spot where we don't really know what to make of them. And I am just personally thrilled that my buddy Cory is back. Cory, can you hear me? Oh. Looks like we're getting there. Cory, you're muted. If you'd like to say anything. Yep. Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm so glad when I have stable internet again. It will be so much more fun.
Yes, I saved it, Cory. Don't worry. Nobody even had a clue that happened. So you're all good. What are your thoughts on these matchups for this week?
Oh man, it is. Look, we don't have a 2 versus 3 or a 1 versus 2, but we do have a ton of intriguing matchups that will tell us a lot about the teams. Like I'm sure you said with Evangel Southwestern.
Yep.
You know, with Southwestern is the Southwestern that we're going to see. the Evangel that me and you think exists. Getting to see Campbellsville with a test is going to. The Reinhardt Southeastern is a sneaky one here. We're going to see a Reinhardt team who struggles to find their way again, or we're going to see Southeastern kind of break out of that shell. And then do me a favor, share your screen because I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head.
Campbellsville U Pike and Benedictine Graceland are the other two on the screen that I am looking
That's it. That's it. Benedictine Graceland. Man, you've got Graceland in the bottom part of your poll.
I do.
I am cautious about Graceland, and honestly, if they can look, we know what Benedictine is. They've played 2 top 5 teams. I'm pretty sure I know what Benedictine is. If now I see Graceland as compared to Benedictine, and they compare favorably, I could see Graceland getting into my poll as well.
Yeah, they feel like one of those fringe top 25 teams that is one good performance away from being on the radar finally. I feel like they've been in this state of almost being there for a year or two, and this could really be the chance for them to take that step up, take it to Benedictine, and win or loss, prove to the rest of the country that you absolutely belong in the conversation. Especially when you have weapons like Gerald Monroe. I mean, that is certainly a recipe for success. Super excited to see how he does against that Benedictine defense that has been really, really good so far this year. But you know who else has been really, really good to us, Cory?
Would that be our patrons?
Oh, wow. It's like you knew. It's our gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful patrons. Everything we are able to do starts with these guys. For as little as $1 a month, you can support everything that we do here at NAIFBALL, whether that's shipping me or Cory out to the national championship game, getting us some awesome pregame setups with UEN. No matter what it is, these patrons help make it happen. You can scan the QR code on your screen or head to patreon.com/NAIFBALL to join this amazing list and be read off by yours truly, or Cory, when his internet decides that it'll start working again, at the end of each episode. So we'd like to take a moment to shout out and say thank you to DSU Cone, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vobble, Fred Christensen, Ace Wellen, Marty Siebel, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Soapbeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Tim Burrow, Nathan Moore, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Todd Nix, Sean Chamberlain, Zach Lance, Casey Wilson, Carol C. Suggs, Chris, Derek Lars, Jason Garden, Christopher Zwiener, Joey Breckel, Koken Nicholas, and Swede Nation Cory. It is going to be another absolutely wonderful week of NAI football. I'm sure if your camera was on, you'd be smiling just as big as you are in that picture at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, man.
Absolutely, and smiling as big as our Mayville State fam folks are. Going. I think they're what, 3-0 now.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've got a couple of Mayville guys in our Discord. Casey Willison being front among them, but very happy, I'm sure Casey is, with how Mayville started the season. That's a team that we don't get to talk about too terribly often, but one thing maybe we might have to talk about coming up here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. They're one to mention. I think Defiance is also another college that should get a shot this weekend. Mm-hmm. Big win over Rio Grande. They looked really good in that contest. And there are... Oh, nope, that's from the first week. Yep.
That is from the first week. I'll remind you that is that is not the river in Texas. That is they're like in Indiana, and there in Indiana they pronounce it Rio Grande, which baffles my mind.
That sounds like
It
some.
breaks every rule.
Yeah,
It's
that
wrong.
sounds like some Indiana stuff. I'm not gonna lie to you, but as I pull it up, I know for a fact the Fights did pick up a win against Judson
There we go.
this weekend in pretty convincing fashion. I have to give them a shout. Kentucky Christian, another team that picked up a good win against Brevard College. William Penn getting it done. Some other teams to shout here. Midland defeated Hastings in their opening GPAC contest. Montana Western had a very dominant win against Montana State Northern. I would argue that's to the surprise of not many people, but the Frontier can frontier, so it's a good win for them regardless. Lindsey Wilson pulling it off in convincing fashion against Ave Maria. Evangel, like we talked about, getting a convincing win over Sterling. Louisiana Christian winning a brawl over Langston, 31-24. Big win for them, especially with some of the pieces they had questions about going into the season. That's definitely one they'll want under their belts. Dakota State gets it done against Division III Nebraska Wesleyan, 37-7 to bounce back after losing to the Tigers the week prior. Missouri Baptist wins a very close one against St. Ambrose of Iowa, 38-35. I know their media team always does a fantastic job of capturing all the cool things going on over there at MoBap. It's just some really cool stuff happening across the country as football season continues to roll. Cory, I don't see anybody in the live chat unless I'm missing something. So is there anything else you'd like to add here at the end of the show?
Give a quick shout. You mentioned William Penn. They're going to be on the Hart Conference Clash of the Week against number 24 Baker.
Yep.
That's a really intriguing matchup. Because you're talking about two guys who are kind of in the same stage in their program, and seeing who's got at this point the better squad of the two, between Miguel Regalado and Brad Benavidez. That's going to be a very intriguing game to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of interesting matchups this weekend, and I think a lot of these interesting matchups won't come to fruition until like after the fact. We're going to be like, oh wait, we weren't paying attention to this one. It seems like that kind of week. Also, one more shout out I have to give: the one win Ottawa of Kansas from last year, getting it done 35-27 against St. Mary. I told you, man, that Ottawa team, they have a good roster. They have a good floor. Would not be surprised if they keep finding wins. So
I've said it before, in 2024, they were the best one-win team in the nation.
You sound like a Nebraska fan now, man. Come on, we can't be having that. No, but seriously, like it's hilarious like how good a 1-10 team from last year can be, because like truthfully they were the best one-win team I've probably ever seen in any capacity. So shout out to Ottawa of Kansas getting it done. The Braves looking to storm back with all the pieces they have still in place. Yeah, Derek Smith just came into chat, mentioned Tabor versus McPherson. Going to be a fantastic matchup this weekend. If the
Blue Jays at Tabor.
If the Blue Jays can get it done, they probably sneak into the top 25, at least on my poll next week, especially with how close they played Southwestern. That will be
100%.
That'll be a really fun game that I think we need to look forward to. Derek Smith, thank you for that one. And I'm not seeing any other comments, so unless anybody has some last-second quips to get in, I think that'll do it for our episode today. So, thank you all for tuning in to the NAIAFBALL show, whether you are on YouTube or UEN. We appreciate you. And thank you for all the support you've given us so far this year. I feel like this season has been a really fun start. We've been able to do a lot of cool things already, and we will aim to continue to do so with your support. So we thank you. And until next time, we'll see y'all on